Hey, welcome everybody. Chris Messer here, Vice President, Group Publisher at Endeavor Business Media's Vehicle Repair Group. I am thrilled to be here this afternoon with a couple industry legends celebrating Motor Age's 125th anniversary, 125 years of serving the great men and women of the automotive service repair segment. And with me today is Tony Molla, Mike Mavrigian, Brandon Steckler, and of course, Peter Meier. So welcome, gentlemen. We're going to go through. We've got a lot of great stuff to be talking about. I'm going to just kind of go around the room and do a little roundtable. Tony, when did you first discover Motor Age? I know you were the editor-in-chief, group editorial director for a while, but when did you first actually discover Motor Age?
I remember it like it was yesterday. I was 16 years old, I was in high school, working at a Sinclair gas station in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. And back then, they still pumped gas. I was on the night shift from 5 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And in between customers, I was sitting in the office with one of those big picture windows, reading copies of Motor Age magazine. That's how I first discovered it.
What year was that, Tony?
That was probably 1966 or thereabouts.
You remember it like it was yesterday. Steel Trap, huh?
Yeah, Fusco Motor Company. That's where I started in the automobile business.
Nice. And now you worked for Motor Age for a number of years formerly. What exactly was your tenure there? How long were you with the brand?
Well, actually, I joined Chilton in 1981 as a book editor, and I wrote the first electronic engine controls manual in the industry back in the day, and that caught the attention of the chief editor at the time of Motor Age, a gentleman by the name of Stan Stevenson. Stan hired me as a technical editor, and 2 years later, I was promoted to managing editor, and then in 1991, I took over as chief editor when Stan retired. And then they acquired Automotive Body Repair News. So they named me editorial director, and I ran both of those magazines until I left the company to join ASE in 2000. So I was there for about 19 years.
Gotcha. So it's been almost 25 years since you left. And I remember sitting down, we had coffee back in December when I was down in Texas in your hometown.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about this issue right here, the 100th anniversary. It was a real pride and joy for you to be there and be part of that in 1999, right?
It was. I had just enough ego that I told ASE I couldn't start until after the 100th anniversary celebration because I wanted to be the chief editor of Motor Age when it turned 100.
Yeah, it was a big deal. We're happy to continue to take that tradition and keep things alive here in 125th year this year in 2024. So
you're awesome. Doing a great job.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for being here. Pete Meier, also another former Motor Age colleague here. Pete, when did you first discover Motor Age magazine?
Oh gosh, kind of a similar story to Tony's, but mine wasn't quite that late. I probably bounced into Motor Age magazine back in the early 90s, again as a tech. Just to keep up on the technical challenges in the industry, and I found a lot of good information in those pages. So, and then there were others out there, but that was my favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, back in those days, right, it was just a printed magazine. There was no website, there were no newsletters, there wasn't a YouTube channel, and all the other content. Exactly. It was really just the one operation. So, and Pete, I know everybody knew you very, very well from all your articles over the years. When did you start working with Motor Age as an editor?
Oh, gosh. I tell you, I got started by accident, quite frankly. As Tony said, this is one of those things I'll never forget. I had a Lexus with an EVAP problem that was just kind of kicking my butt. And going through the service information really wasn't clear. So we have this thing now available called the internet. So I figured, okay, well, let me see what that can tell me. The little big box computers that we had, and did some research. At that time, Toyota had like 4 different EVAP systems in play. So I wrote a bunch of notes on them, common problems, diagnostic processes, that kind of thing, put it all together. And then was going to put it in my toolbox. But my wife says, why don't you send that in one of those magazines you're always looking at? And I says, nothing from nothing leaves nothing, right? So I sent it into Motor Age and a competitive magazine, and the competitive magazine actually published that one. It's not my first published article, but Jacques Gordon was the tech editor at the time, and he and Shannon Brandenberry, who was the managing editor at the time, I guess they liked my writing style, and they asked me, they couldn't use it for that particular calendar year, but they asked me to start doing some of the garage articles, which was, those are the, talking about something that was kicking your butt and over a beer after work, and what you did to rise to the challenge, and sometimes you didn't rise to the challenge from that, and that was just as informative and educational as well. So and I started wrote those for a few years, and then right around 08, of course everybody got real tight, staffs were being trimmed, and I started doing the technical editor job, kind of a freelance basis, until I finally got to the point where the demands of the job versus the demands of my day job just was too much. And, I went to Jim Sabas at the time and said, hey, look, it's either full-time or no time. So, which do you want to do? And I was very fortunate that they brought me on full-time.
And you were with the brand until 2023, right? And then took a leap and
no, that was what, last year, yes.
Yeah, last April, May timeframe, and now you're with Dorman.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing though. It's they initiated a Dorman training initiative, have given us a lot of free space to work in, and have attracted some pretty talented people. I mean, I think everybody in the audience knows G. Trulia. He's actually my boss now, and those who are involved with the national training events will be very familiar with Ken Zanders, who's one of the Chicago Wise guys, a superb instructor. And we've got a bright young man named Josh Weaver coming along. So very fortunate we can provide a lot of quality material to the audience. So
yeah, mission is really the same in what you're doing now, just trying to bring quality education and technical information to the men and women in the industry, right?
Yeah, and that's the point too that I felt very, and still do. Those who know me are probably familiar with this because I haven't made any secrets of it. When I was a tech, when I joined Motor Age, and at the time it was very difficult to find training or training resources, at least in my area. And if they did come across, they were typically 3-hour infomercials, for some tool company or product company, or put on by some of the local training companies at the time, if you could find them. Sometimes they were a little out of reach for, the average working guy. So when I came to Motor Age, we have a brand, Motor Age Training, that at the time was pretty much just ASE study guides, and they still are some of the best in the business as far as I'm concerned. But we didn't go any further than that. And as you kind of mentioned, this was the dawning of a new age. Like I said, we had this thing called the internet. And next thing you know, we had these weird websites popping up like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all these things going on. And I felt at the time that this is where our generation of techs is living. I've never made I use this all the time. If you go to a national event, and they're all wonderful, they're all great, they do a stupendous job, experiences that can't be matched any other way, shape, or form. But there's 750,000 men and women in our industry. Some of them don't even know these events exist, let alone be able to go to them. So I want to get out where we could reach them. And a lot of times I did things at Motor Age early on that I waited to ask for forgiveness rather than wait for permission. So, I started our social media platforms. I started our YouTube channel, all with the aim of trying to provide as many different avenues that techs could take advantage of. Of course, we led to the webinars. I think that was something that was at the time pretty unique. Because we did them live, we did them in the shop atmosphere. We tried to make it as close to being a hands-on experience as we could. And I think that's just gotten better now as our knowledge grew, because none of us were videographers or, that wasn't our background. We all kind of learned as we went. But yeah, and I'm very proud of that. And also I'm very proud of the fact that I was able to bring in some of those top national trainers as contributors to the articles. One of the things that I promised and still do, I'm not going to, if I can't dazzle you with brilliance, I'm not going to baffle you with bullshit. You know what I mean? Today's technicians need accurate and current, up-to-date information. And I know I'm kind of running along here, but that's something else I like to share with the audience I see in person now. And I'll challenge your audiences watching this. Many of you have 5, 10, 15 years of experience in this industry, but and don't shoot the messenger, as I say, that could also be a handicap for you because you're so used to doing things the way you've always done them. And sometimes you can't do that. I mean, who thought we were ever to tell the car that we put a battery in it? And that's a very small example of the challenges.
Yeah.
So now I think the challenge is, it comes from the book Future Shock. I kind of paraphrase that a little bit. Is not to just be able to learn, is to be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn as necessary to keep up with these challenges. And again, that's, what's the mantra of the magazine? Advancing the automotive service professional. And I was very proud to take part in that mission. I think we did a lot in that 10-year, 11-year period.
Yeah, Pete, without a doubt, made incredible contributions. And, you speak a little bit to that. The most dangerous words in businesses, we've done it this way because it's the way we've always done it, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be able to
especially now
relearn.
Consider this. It's like if you ask a bunch of technicians if they've ever looked at the data PIDs for a GDI injector or a common rail diesel injector and how long does that stay on? And it's around a 1 and some change milliseconds, right? Well, let's put that into context. How long does it take for a spark to jump across a plug gap? Could be 1.8, maybe 2 milliseconds. So if you think about it, that injector opened, delivered the proper amount of fuel, and closed before that spark got halfway across that plug gap. That's crazy. And it's not just opening once. It's opening 3, 4, 8 times, controlled, precise. That's the technology that guys have to understand they're working on now. Close is not good enough anymore.
Yep.
You either fix it correctly or you didn't fix it correctly. And guys need to understand that. They want to understand that. They just don't know where to get the resources. That's the biggest challenge still, is making guys aware of where those resources are available to them.
Well, and there are more resources available to the young men and women and older generation men and women that are serving the industry than ever before. But you can't be living under a rock. You still have to go out and find them. And so you also mentioned something there, Pete. You brought some people along for the ride. You brought some people on board, including one of these gentlemen around the call here, a friend of mine, Brandon Steckler. Brandon, what's your first memory of Motor Age magazine?
I most people know I began my career at the dealership level. Right out of high school, I attended a GM, General Motors ASEP program, stands for Automotive Service Educational Program. And I found success there and also some confidence. And I did fairly well at the GM dealership. I transitioned to a Honda dealership, and I spent a little more than 10 years with Honda. And I was very successful there as well. So in my mind, I thought myself of as a very successful technician, and I was. But it wasn't until I made it into the independent side of the industry that I realized I wasn't really good. I was complacent and I was comfortable. It was then that I discovered training material like Motor Age magazine and Pete Meier. Pete has been a hero and I'm not just saying it because he's sitting here with us, but it's true. Pete's been a hero to many of us across the industry for a very long time. And I was fortunate to link up with the right people and eventually found myself at these training events that we speak of. And that's where I first ran into Pete. And it was like meeting a baseball hero. You know what I mean? So, I look at Pete and now, it's been well over, I think, just about 10 years now, Pete. I think we've known each other.
Yeah.
And Pete's been more than a friend to me. Pete's been like an uncle, more like a father figure. And Pete gave me an opportunity to submit an article for Motor Age. And at the time I wasn't really a writer. I'm just a technician. But I submitted it to Pete, not thinking it would go anywhere. And Pete chewed it up and spit it out pretty good, but he gave me an opportunity to fix it up right. And I found it in the magazine. I couldn't believe it. And then one opportunity led to the next one. And eventually Pete talked to me about the future. He said, at some point in time, he's going to be looking to retire and might want somebody to take his position as technical editor. And I just saw that to be unattainable at the time, but Pete showed me it was possible and really encouraged me and helped me along the way. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Awesome.
And I got to inject here, Chris. I mean, Brandon I think what really caught my eye with Brandon is our very first auto mechanica. And one of his mentors, Jim Morton, was scheduled to present for us, but could not. And told me about this kid that had been working with him, and said, "Oh, hey, for this kid, he can handle it. Just give him a shot." So we did. He did a fantastic job. And getting a chance to speak to him, at a few occasions, made me realize something that I'm still proud to see him still continue. I think it's important and our roles to, number one, have a commitment to our audience, our technicians, to make sure that we're doing what they can to help them have a better living for their family, to make more money, and the only way to do that is to make sure they get the right information from the right people. And like I said, Brandon has just really taken off in that role, both as the technical editor and as a national trainer, top 10 guy in his own right, from all the work that he's done. But he has that heart. And I think if you look at many of the top trainers in the country at any of the events, that's the common denominator. They don't need to do it. You know what I mean? They do it because they want to help these men and women get to that next level, become more efficient, become more profitable for themselves. Again, provide for a better standard of living for their families. And I think Brandon carries that on. Very, very proud of him.
Pete, thank you for saying that. And Chris, if you don't mind, I'd like to throw something else out there. Very important. One of the driving factors in how I conduct things, like Pete said, I really enjoy technical instruction and reaching other technicians. But a big part of my success, continued success, was the inspiration that guys, mentors and heroes of mine like Pete and like Jim Morton, it was the confidence that they instilled in me. Because I assure you, regardless of what I accomplished behind the scenes, or how well I understood how something worked, or how much success I found in the work bay as a technician, believe me, I don't believe I'd be sharing it openly if I didn't have the confidence to do so. And if it wasn't for those two gentlemen helping me see that, I don't think I'm sure I wouldn't be where I am today. So I want to do the same for other people. I want to empower.
Yeah, we all owe a lot of credit to those men and women before us, right? That give us opportunity, that show us the path, the way. So it's nice to pay homage to that. And speaking of one of those, industry legend, Mike Mavrigian, our editor-in-chief of, he rolls his eyes a little bit, our editor-in-chief of Motor Age, carrying the torch here in this 125th anniversary celebration. Mike, when was the first time you discovered Motor Age? And don't tell me 1899. I know you got a little season behind you, but it hasn't been that long.
Well, I started in the industry with Jobber Retailer magazine. It was a new startup at the time, trying to give auto parts stores at the time to attract DIY business, and we all know how that went. And but during that, the magazine was very business focused, and I had more of a technical mind. Not that I knew what I was doing, but I wanted them to do more tech. And little by little, I forced them into it, and things went on and on. And during that process, I saw Motor Age magazine. I was just starting to learn about all the different trade magazines, and I thought, damn it, I'd rather work for them, or at least let's incorporate what they do into Jobber Retailer. And I got close, but no cigar. So finally, I left them and started up a new magazine. It was Precision Engine, and I had a publisher take it over to own it, and I just ran it. It was strictly internal engine, primarily performance. What goes on, and then I started writing for AERA's Engine Professional magazine when that started up, and I still do right now. And then Auto Service Professional started, and so I ran that for the stint of that, and then you guys took it over, and now I'm with Motor Age. But the whole time I've always revered what Motor Age did, and I wanted a piece of that because it the techs we have today, the techs that are coming up. I mean, obviously diagnostics, understanding all of the computer controlled systems today is obviously vital important, but we still need to include the basics for newbies that are coming in terms of the importance of torque values. How to treat different mechanical systems, simply, mounting and balancing tires. We can't ignore the basics for the people that are coming up. But for some people, try to do it all, and more credit to them. But some people may want to specialize in a certain area. A guy may want to specialize in diagnostics. Another guy may want to specialize in chassis, what have you. And so I think, having a nice mix of that in the magazine with obviously keeping up to date with today's technology, the most important aspect. But I don't know what else to say there.
Well, we appreciate you at the helm, Mike. You've got a wealth of experience here and have been doing a great job to usher the magazine into to the next century here. So I'm curious, quick answers here. In the whole time that you've known Motor Age, worked there, previously worked with the magazine, or after that time, what is your number one most remarkable, favorited memory of the brand itself?
I honestly don't have an answer for that because I was so focused with doing my work at the time. I didn't really have time to pay attention as much as I wanted to the other publications. I just saw Motor Age from time to time, saw Motor from time to time, what have you. And like I said, I kept envying what they were doing.
Gotcha. Tony, how about you? I know you've got a lot of memories.
Yeah, actually I do. And what Mike says is very true. One of the things that always struck me about Motor Age, and it was something that was instilled in me by Stan Stevenson. We do stand on the shoulders of giants. Stan was a bit of a visionary. He was probably the visionary in the industry at the time. He forced me to look ahead. And when I was running the magazine, it was a time when we were having the explosion in electronics. I mean, we went from, basic mechanical carburetors all the way through, fuel injection, that sort of thing. And the important thing about Motor Age that I remember was it was always very, very adaptable. The leadership in the magazine, the publisher, and Chilton, of course, they made the magazines or the service manuals, so you would expect that. But they were very, very good about allowing the editors to do their thing, if you will, with what is next. And I started something called Diagnostics Quarterly, to Mike's point and to Brandon's point, where I saw that diagnostics was going to be a big thing back in the 80s, okay? And it was about 1991, I think, that we started Diagnostics Quarterly, focusing on those specialists that Mike mentioned, that want to get more vertical, if you will, within the industry and focus on something like that. And that's something I think Motor Age did very well. Probably that's my favorite memory, along with winning a Neal Award.
Along with winning, which is a nationally recognized award. I think, Pete Meier, you have a Neal Award too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
If it is, it's laying in your office somewhere. I have no.
We went through this. It got lost in the Cleveland or the Independence office, but I think that was back in 2022 or 2021. I don't know, Brandon, you've gotten some recognition from the group as a finalist for that as well. Pete, what's your favorite memory of Motor Age throughout time?
I think it's gonna be pretty easy. I mean, I have a number for sure, but I think the one that stands out the most in my mind was our very first Auto Mechanica. Now, we were challenged with taking care of the training element. The upstairs I won't comment on, but we focused on the training element. And one of the things I was very proud of was that we were able to offer that opportunity to technicians at no cost to themselves. We went to our sponsors, covered foot the bills. And again, it was to help those men and women. I guess you back up a step. If you look at the stats, too many people in the industry think that technicians are pulling down 6 figures a year. That's just not true. Most are very hardworking men and women. Median income is around $45,000 a year, and I was one of those guys. If I went to my wife and said, "Hey, I need $1,500 to go to some event and wherever to cover the training and the hotel and the flight and the food and everything else," she'd look at me like I was out of my mind. We got mortgage to pay, we got diapers to buy, we got food to put in, you know what I mean? So that was always something very heavy in my heart. So I wanted to help these men and women. And again, I want to stress here, all of these national events are fantastic. They need to be on every tech's bucket list for so many other reasons than just the training opportunity, but this was our goal to get that out. And that's where Brandon made his first appearance, if you will. And Brandon, I don't know if you remember, but we had close to 2,000 attendees. And for the most part, I'm going to say that 90% of these men and women have never been to any training event ever in their life. Every educator that was there, I think we had 100 trainers on the calendar. Every one of them were excited because there were faces in the crowd. They didn't want to leave class. They were asking questions. They were engaged, and going in the hallways between classes were like being in a rock concert. The excitement and was in the air. And to see those men and women, to see the lights coming on about the importance of continuing that after that event, I think has kind of helped in that growing trend. Men and women understanding they need the continuing education, but being able to provide that, being able to offer that, of course, with the support, of the guys in the Crystal Palace, to allow us to do that, meant a lot to me. And right behind that is because of all the work that we've done online, the webinars, the YouTubes and such, to have men and women approach me at any of these events and just say thank you for having that resource, for having that material available that helped them learn and grow. Is probably and still is one of my biggest sources of satisfaction.
It brings it all full circle when you can see it in person, and it's tangible. You get 2,000 plus people into the same event center, and you can just feel the energy. It's palpable. I remember that. I remember Auto Mechanica as well, Peter. Fond memories of it. Thank you. Brandon, what do you think your most fond memory is? Most memorable moment from Motor Age?
I got to say, picking up where Pete left off, Pete did a fantastic job getting the stakes in the ground for Motor Age YouTube channel and trying to pick up and fill the shoes that Pete left when he moved on with Dorman. I got to admit, I was a little nervous for that because Pete's got some big shoes to fill. But what I love about that, my most fond memory so far, is all the feedback that we get via the comments in the YouTube videos that we post, from the content itself to how it helped them fix cars, and they're, to this day, I still get random emails from people all across the world that watch our content thanking us, and they all still ask for Pete. Where's Pete? What's he up to these days? You know what I mean? And these are people I'm sure Pete's never met. I know I've never met, and they're on another continent. But I feel like we've really left our mark for the better, and very proud to be associated with the brand, and honored that Pete has taken me under his wing, and I had the opportunity to try and do what he's done for so long at such a high level.
If I can say something here, and I'm not saying this because Brandon's on the screen here, but the magazine, I think, is just doing an excellent job because of Brandon and our two other contributors, Craig Vandenberg and Jeff Taylor. All three guys just have a wealth of knowledge. They do an excellent job of sharing it. Especially Brandon's stuff is just, it's diamond sharp. And
Thank you, Mike.
One of these. I almost forgot. I won a Neil Award too, but it was for a competing magazine. So I don't know if you want to mention that. Yeah.
Congratulations, nonetheless.
Yeah, they kind of scraped the bottom of the barrel for that one.
Wait, Tony, are you the only one without a Neil Award here?
No, actually, I won a Neil Award for my editorials back in the 90s, and that was at the time, it was really tough for the technical, they called them screwdriver magazines on the Neil committee. And it was really tough for the technical magazines to rise to the top in the Neil Award. And there was one other magazine at the Chilton Company that won several magazines, a trucking book, and or several Neil Awards, trucking book. And he kind of coached us in the editorial group. And by, refining what we did and getting attention, it eventually succeeded. In fact, Motor Age actually won a number of awards over the years. One from the Moto Award was one of the more significant, I think, from the International Automotive Journalists. So, but what everybody's saying here is very important. It's the people in the magazine, I think, that make it so special and so memorable. There have been a host of real all-stars that have come through the pages of Motor Age magazine. One of them is not here today, Mitch Schneider. I got to mention Mitch. He was a legend in the industry as well. And at one time or another, it's funny, Everyone that seems to have worked for Motor Age in their career at some point, I know I was certainly one of them, but all along the way, I think it was the ability to have that vision to look forward and kind of tell us what's coming is what really attracted the attention. And to Mike's point, the variety, it didn't just focus on either business or mechanical or one or the other, but it took the time to break up the various segments and really explain what's going on. And I think that's the key to the success of the magazine over the years. It's always been that valuable information resource that both Peter and Brandon have been talking about. And I think that's probably what's going to carry it into the future.
I can't agree more. And we've talked a little bit about like all these changes that you've seen with Motor Age over the years, trying to advance with the same pace that the vehicle technology advances. Being more than just, actually I have a copy here, thanks to Mr. Tony, of the original, a replica copy of the first issue, September 12th, 1899, volume 1, issue number 1. And, for 105 years or so, it was a print magazine. That's it. And now you look at it and there's emails and webinars and a training division and the video side. Just a number of different opportunities to be kind of an omni-channel approach to give the men and women content that'll help them to be more proficient in their job and to help out their families, as you talked about, Pete, but to also help out the consumer, the community, and be more efficient, be more effective, and make sure that we're fixing cars the right way. I'm curious, going around the room here, what can we do as a team here at Motor Age to make Motor Age magazine and the brand itself sticky for the next 125 years? What's next coming around the corner? Tony, to your point, like we're always looking forward. Where do you see that change and evolution coming next? Tony, we can start with you if you don't mind.
Well, the change away from print to the multimedia world we live in now really has given us opportunities to share information in ways that we never could before to audiences literally globally. Podcasting is one of the fastest growing areas right now. And if you have any kind of a podcast, you'll find that you have listeners literally all around the world. And it's that level of reach, I think, that was just unheard of back in the day when it was just print publications. Although you and I have had this conversation, I don't sell the value of the print short because a lot of folks out there still like the idea of reading. I know I'm a voracious reader myself. So I think it's being able to adapt to the various ways, the various channels, as you put it, that we can talk to the industry. But I think the second part of that is that visionary look ahead. Somebody has to be taking a look over the hill for us. And I think Motor Age as the scout, if you will, to recognize where the new technology is coming and where it's going, I think is really the value that it provides to the industry. The technical expertise required to adapt to the changes you'll find in the technical articles. That's where Brandon comes in and Mike and all the technical editors over the years. But I think it's the capability to, again, get involved with the industry to the point where you're able to recognize, it's your crystal ball. You're able to recognize what's going to be the next big thing and helping the industry prepare for that, because it's not flipping a switch. We have to ramp up with everything. So.
Well, and to speak to that, Tony, we're actually doing that right now. We are a couple of us here, including our managing editor for Motor Age, is down in North Canton at Stark State College here for the Napa EV Ready program.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to stay in front of that each and every day. And sometimes it's hard. None of us have a crystal ball, but we have to be that first one over the hill. And hopefully we get it right more times than we get it wrong. But if nothing else, we try to educate and inspire people along the way. So Mike, how about you? Any thoughts on for the future and how we can make sure to stay ahead of the curve? And
I wish I was that smart. No, I agree with everything Tony said. We just have to keep looking ahead. What's next? Hovercraft? Who knows?
The Jetsons era will be here sooner than we know it, right?
Trying to increase traction over the clouds. I don't know.
How about you, Pete?
Well, first, I don't want to downplay the element we haven't really spoken of, and that was the management side of the business that Motor Age also offers a tremendous amount of resources.
Yeah.
The men and women who are business, I don't care if they're a chain operation, been in business for 100 years, or it's a guy who's just setting out on his own. That's a learned skill set too. And there's a lot of great, people who have shared their knowledge, through the pages of the magazine to help them take care of the business of doing business, As far as like going down the future, I'm the Antichrist when it comes to EVs. So I don't think that they're going to take over the world. But I think that if the magazine stays focused on the audience, I get it, and it took me a while to understand that, but you guys are in the advertising business, you're in the marketing business, you offer clients the opportunity to get in front of our audience. But if our audience isn't finding the resources in the magazine worthwhile, they're not going to open the pages. You know what I mean? So that's one. But the other thing is, it's against, like I keep saying, it's advancing the automotive service professional. That's been our mantra for at least all the time I was there, and keeping that serious. That's why I was so glad that when the duties got to be too much for me in one role, that Brandon was brought in to help take on some of that load, and now it's all his. So, but as long as we remember that, then I think everything will be just fine.
Well, I think at the core of it, I mean, that is our mission, right? That's what we have to be focused on, is advancing the service repair side of things. And you're right, Pete. I mean, from a business perspective here, we're supported by all of our partners and advertisers, and that, that's how we keep the lights on. But at the end of the day, it's a symbiotic relationship. We need to make sure to have the readership. We need to make sure to serve the reader. And Brandon and others on my team have heard me say this countless times. Our customer is anybody who advertises, sponsors, reads the magazine, attends an event, ingests a webinar, watches a video. I mean, whether they're paying with monetary funds or they're paying with time, which is our most precious resource, they're all part of our ethos, and we all operate in this same environment, and are all after the same thing. So I couldn't be more thankful for each one of our customers, each one of our readers. They're all very, very meaningful. And to that end, Brandon, what are your thoughts? What's up on the horizon for you? I know you're always working on some new cutting edge stuff, and anything you'd like to share with our audience.
Well, to answer the question about where technology is going, honestly, regarding propulsion, I'm not 100% convinced, like Pete, that EV is, at least on its own, is going to be the propulsion system of choice, whether it's first initiated by hydrogen technology, or whether we're burning hydrogen in an internal combustion engine. I mean, I really think we're going to start heading in that direction, just my opinion. Regarding Pete's comment about advancing automotive professional, again, that's been my goal, my ethos since I started. Pete's instilled that in me from day one, and I did not want to take on this role without always keeping that at the forefront of my goal. But with that, I don't think that can happen unless we speak at a level that these professional men and women can absorb. So someone like me in a role of doing the research and understanding for myself how things work, unless I can divulge that information in a fashion that's attainable and usable for our professional automotive men and women in our industry, it's useless. It's just bells and whistles. So that's my goal, is to keep things digestible, easy to understand. And that's where I got to put in the work on my end.
Makes total sense. All right, one final question, gentlemen. You could pass along one piece of advice to men and women that are just starting their career in the industry. What would that piece of advice be? Brandon, you can go first.
Okay. For one, I'll say this, just a statement. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Two, learn from your mistakes, but also learn from others' mistakes. And if I can give one final piece of advice, you're not going to learn from going to class. That's going to sow some seeds. You have to get out there and you have to practice these techniques and use these tools on cars that aren't broken. And once you've proven to yourself that these things work, now it's time to start implementing them in your normal test routines. I call that learning with the training wheels on. And then sooner or later, you can take the training wheels off. And what I mean by that is you're going to replace these more difficult to perform tests with these newfound technologies and testing techniques that you've recently acquired.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank
Tony?
you.
Well, to echo Brandon's thing, never stop learning. That's for sure. But my mantra has always been make a difference. Make a difference in yourself, make a difference in the company that you're working for, make a difference in the industry that you work in, and make a difference in the people that you meet. It's been mentioned during this conversation of Brandon was inspired, by Pete. There's certainly a lot of people in my career, in my life, that have inspired me. And hopefully along the way, I've managed to do that as well. My LinkedIn profile says relatively retired, but I still contribute back to the industry by working as a field manager for the ASE Education Foundation, so I can work with tomorrow's technicians. And again, by sharing what I can in the way of advice and knowledge through the podcasting. But it's important to share the information that you do have with others. Pay it forward, whatever you want to call it, pass it along. But again, make a difference in someone's life and your own. And I think that's the key to success.
There's a reason that we chose to invite these special guests on here today, because each one of you have made a difference. And Tony, you're a living legend in the industry. I know you're a humble person, but many people know and are very grateful for everything that you've done to support our industry in a number of different fashions. So thank you, sir. Sincerely.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Pete, how about you? One piece of advice for the men and women here starting a career in the industry.
Your education didn't stop when you left your 2-year program. It only began. Continuing education is paramount. Number 2 is make sure you vet the source of that training. Today, especially with all the online resources, if you Google something, you're going to get all kinds of answers that are not answers. We all kind of laugh about the fact that I'm a YouTube certified master technician, right? But that's unfortunately the reality. And that's one of the things that I am so thankful that the brand is continuing on the same track that we started with on the channel, on the YouTube channel, because we've been asked numerous times, you should have so many more subscribers than you do. Well, we don't put in videos that are, here's how to fix this on your 2001 GMC pickup. And that's what YouTube wants. They want that algorithm, so when people search that stuff, your videos pop up. We never did that. I hope you never do. Because it might sound corny, but I don't want to, and I'm sure Brandon does as well. We don't want to get people to fish. I'd rather teach you how to fish so that you can apply that to whatever given situation is in your bay. So you have to vet the sources. There's some good ones out there. There's also some very, very bad ones. So you have to do that as well.
Can't agree more. And, it's really, really at the core tenet of what we do at Motor Age, and what we will continue to do is to be one of those trusted sources. 125 years strong, and looking forward to, I don't think any of us will be around for the 250th anniversary. God willing, it'd be great if we were, but I certainly hope that we can carry this brand further and faster than ever before. Sincerely, gentlemen, it's an honor to be at the helm here, to oversee Motor Age, to bring this type of content and information to the industry. But at the end of the day, credit resides to all of you and the other hundreds and maybe even thousands of contributors throughout time that have helped bring the pages of Motor Age to life, the videos, the webinars, all of the great content that helped to serve the men and women that are turning their wrenches and fixing the cars on our roads here today. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here today. Thank you for all your contributions, and thank you for celebrating here. Cheers to another 125 years.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Chris.